This is the Career Brand Story podcast where we talk about your career, your brand, and your story, and a whole lot more. We've been on a journey helping 3,000 people thrive in their life and do more of what they love. Good morning, Jebb. It's so good to see you.
Good morning. It's good to see you.
It is morning time for us, too.
Well, for me, I'm 3 minutes away from noon, so...
It's still morning time.
Enjoy your morning while it lasts.
That's right. Jebb is in Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm in Nashville, North Carolina, so an hour behind.
Nashville,
Speaking of
North Carolina?
Did I say Nashville, North Carolina?
You did. Where's that?
I meant Nashville. I have no idea. Is there a Nashville, North Carolina? There probably is.
Probably. There's like Paris, Texas, and Miami, Texas, but they call it Miami.
Yeah. Nashville, Tennessee. So that's where I really am. It's an hour behind, which is kind of weird that they sit in this little sliver of Central Time. So
it's a special little pocket.
Yeah, because all my friends and family are on East Coast time, and so they're always running an hour behind. So it changes late night conversations because I think, I want to call so-and-so. And I'm like, it's like 11 o'clock and it's only 10 o'clock my time.
Yeah.
So then I don't. Or sometimes I still do. And I'm like, I'm sorry it's late, but it's not for me yet.
Whatever's good for you.
So, but hey, this is the last year that we have to do daylight savings.
Is it? Has it been voted on?
Yeah. It was voted on last year. We will fall back. I think the first November 6th, I think we fall back. And then in the spring, we'll have to spring forward one last time. And then we never change again.
I'm happy about that.
Yeah. I mean, ever since I started working remotely and for myself, I really haven't cared. Especially when I got out of ministry, because it always happens on a Saturday to Sunday. And I would have to wake up super early at church and then people were tired and yada, yada, yada. Well, now I just don't go to church on that Sunday. I just sleep in. It doesn't bother me about the change or whatever. Yeah. I'll trick them.
Suckers.
Hopefully God forgives me for that Sunday.
I think you're going to be okay.
I hope so. Yeah. So what's been happening in your world?
Oh man, it's been busy. I've got projects out the wazoo, it seems. I've got an animation project I'm working on with this great animator that's like half animation, half video. I've got I was in Connecticut for a couple days of headshot photography shoot days, and then this week Matt Mary comes up again. I'm doing a headshot booth, like I call it the headshot experience booth, where I set up at like trade shows and stuff, and people get to them free headshots, but a company pays me to show up and do the booth. So it's like a replacement. Instead of going to a convention or an expo and getting like a little pin with the company logo on it, you actually get to walk away with something you will actually use, like a professional headshot. So that's what I'm doing the rest of this week. Headshots, editing, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. I have utilized that headshot photo booth before in job fairs, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So there's companies out there. They should do that. Plus, we're heading into the holiday season, so they should check out Mr. Good Booth for the holiday season too.
Yeah. Well, and Mr. Good Booth is a totally separate thing, like completely different.
That is true. I just mentioned a whole separate brand for you there.
Yeah. So they should check that out, and a headshot experience booth for trade shows.
Yeah. Lots of stuff. That's good.
Yeah.
I love it.
You did it, back when your old company did it, you didn't even get the full experience. It's so much more now. I wish I could time travel.
Was that was probably one of the first times you did it for that kind of setting, right?
Yeah, it was. I think, in fact, that was the first time beyond concepting it that I had done it. And now it's like really cool. You get, we've got touchscreen kiosks where you can come get your image right away. We've got advertising for sponsors on screens and just all kinds of cool stuff.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so really fun experience.
Awesome. Well, today we're just talking about hot topics. So we're just going to dive into several different types of topics. One of the biggest things that I think that I've been seeing out here through social media, and I actually recently talked about this. I had the opportunity to shoot a commercial. I can't say for whom yet, but it was for a big company, and one of the things we talked about was the future of work, but really around like the Great Resignation, quiet quitting, unionization, labor rebellion, the whole kind of what I call a job revolution taking place, and really what is like the future of work looking like. You know, when we go back, and if you go back to even like podcasts before, when the pandemic started happening and remote work really was like what everybody was doing all of a sudden, we started seeing this trend of people being like, well, I'm more productive at home, and I'm never going back to the office. And I will be honest, I felt like, well, this is true is what happening. Even it's not what I felt; it is true. But that that most companies would still try to bring their workforce back into the office. And what I was curious about watching was how many people will really go against that and say, no, I'm not going to do it, or just go back with the flow. And I think what we have seen is a job revolution really happening. So if you go back to, kind of one of the biggest last moments where we had a total evolution in workforce back in the Industrial Revolution, right? There were all the similar things taking place, from pay dynamics to living wages to hours work to safety to all these technology advances. Like everything was kind of shifting and changing at that point, and so there was a huge shift and change for labor and how they would work. And I think we're now facing that where we are today again. And so we see it, we first heard it termed as like the Great Resignation. And that's what the media was reporting it out as and how people were referring to it. And it was just a phase. That's what it was supposed to be. And then the next thing we see come out is quiet quitting. And quiet quitting, if you don't know, is basically the idea that you just do what you get paid for.
Wow, what a concept.
It's crazy.
So I have been wondering ever since I've been hearing that term. I can't believe we haven't talked about it yet. I've just been wondering what your take is on that.
That's a really good question.
We can come back to it.
No, I mean, I understand the... So I agree that you should get paid for what you do. I think that if you are a company that is not just paying fairly, but is rewarding your employees for the work they do, right? Compensationally, but also providing a culture where they can really thrive and not just survive. And you're really in tune with what your employers want in their life beyond just the work they do for you. Because if you're running a company, the only person who is going to care the most about that company and work the hardest about that company is you.
Yeah.
So any great manager out there knows one of your job responsibilities is how do you motivate other people to come alongside you to come and do the work with you, But they're never going to do it at the same level you do it because it's not their company. Unless you, I guess, make it employer ownership and give them, which is one way to do it, right?
Right.
But I think that if you are rewarding people compensationally, if you are giving work, if you're giving meaning to the work, and you are, really in tune again with how they can thrive in their life outside of just what that work is that they're doing, I don't think you're going to have an issue of people quiet quitting.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't necessarily. Well, that sounds like I'm putting words in your mouth, but I don't necessarily think that quiet quitting is really an issue in the first place because, people are just doing what they've been asked to do or what they're paid to do. But I think to your point, like it's really, do you have a culture where people, where you're getting the best out of people, not because you're trying to steal the best out of people, but because you're trying to ignite the best in people. And then, you're probably more likely to see, people kind of do the cliche of going above and beyond or 110% or whatever. But I think, it's just not a good culture when the first words out of your mouth are, we expect 110%. That puts me right off of wanting to work there.
Yeah, and I think the issue where quiet quitting becomes really prevalent is in toxic work environments. And when you're working with toxic managers, because, they typically are asking ridiculous things of their workforce that are unreasonable for someone to do without, again, fair compensation, recognition, rewards, whatever goes into all of that, with very little care, if any at all, for the employee's life. And I had a boss once who said, you just treat people like people, and things. That's just true. The best bosses I work for just treat people like people. They're not, expecting that people don't have lives and aren't doing things and outside of the work. And so, I think that, with anything, even outside of quiet quitting, I think that you have to evaluate all of your work. And, any one of us has to decide, okay, well, how much mental energy am I going to put into this? Because there's times where we can get involved in something and we put in way too much mental energy into something that really isn't worth it. I've been trying to teach my son that's in college. This is his freshman year, and he's taking some classes that, quite frankly, he doesn't like. He's described them to me. They sound like a waste of time myself. I can't disagree with him on some things, right? And I'm like, but that's part of undergrad work that you do. Don't put more energy into that class than what it's worth. Mm-hmm. So I guess I'm telling him to quiet quit in his college career already, But I mean, right? I mean, why would you go and, spend, extraordinary amount of energy doing something that at the end of the day, the payoff really isn't going to be there. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Well, so to me, that's kind of like, that's to me how I would kind of view that. That's how I view my work. I mean, in anything I do, there's certain payoffs that are like, I'm going to invest more time on this because there's a bigger payoff, where on something else, I'm not going to put as much time into it because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah. And that payoff can be anything from, literal payoff where you're seeing a bonus or something come through, to just like the perks, the soft perks of, like, for me, I tend to, it's not intentional. I just tend to do a little bit more for the clients of mine that I really enjoy working with versus the ones who, make things harder for me. They're the ones that I just do what I've been contracted for, get it done and get it shipped. And the rest of them, I'm like having fun, so I'm putting more energy into it.
Yeah, because the reward is different, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way with clients. Difficult clients, I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to waste my energy here. This is like in and out, and you're gone and you're done. And that's really all you want because of the way you're treating the whole process. And then there's these other clients where, they're apologetic because they're like, oh, we went way past our time. And I'm like, no, I was having fun. I'm glad to be engaged with you. And we have this relationship. And some of my best clients are great friends now that I've had for years. So I think that's how I guess I view all of my work and how I hear quiet quitting from people. If you're a manager and you have someone that you feel is quiet quitting, well, maybe that's on you to engage them and figure out like what that means for them and why are they not maybe feeling as motivated in the work that they're doing when you have the expectation or your desire is, hey, I'd really like for people to go over and beyond on this. Well, to me as a manager, I need to think about, well, how do I make that even worth it to my employees to even want to do that?
Bingo. Well, and that makes me think of a story that was suggested to me the other day. So we talk about this stuff, and the whole time my Google Pixel's listening, so it's recommending articles for me to read. One of those was CEO laughs off unfair job conditions and loses the entire department responsible for $100 million worth of deals. Have you read this one?
No, I saw the title this weekend, but I didn't read it.
All right. So the gist of it is, I'm not going to read all this verbatim, partially because MSN.com is where I'm reading this story, and it's just clickbait everywhere. I don't know where to click to read the story. So anyway, this person, they went on Reddit on the, I think it was on the malicious compliance subreddit, and they're talking about how over time, he and his small team, they're like maintaining these mergers and acquisitions department of this big company. And it's like a $10 billion company, right? So they're maintaining these mergers and acquisitions, and they're still making barely more than what they made when they started. So they're getting their 2% inflation raises. So it comes time for this, this big company retreat type situation at a hotel. There's 300 employees there, and the CEO's, the C-suite graces everyone with their presence and says, We're a transparent office here. Send us any questions in. I'll read the best ones. We'll answer those. So this person decides to submit the question asking how do they plan to retain people when it's easy to go find a job that pays twice as much with 50% of the effort required. So the CEO decides this is a question worth reading to the crowd and laughs at this person.
He's reading. Let me understand this. They're at this annual retreat with their whole company. He reads the question out loud in front of everybody, and he proceeds to laugh about it.
Yeah, he says.
Okay.
The person says the CEO decided this question was hilarious and read it aloud, laughing, and responded, "If you find that job," with finger quotes. He said, "If you find that job, you better take it. Goodbye." So, of course, you know where this is going. This person says, well, after being treated pretty terribly the last 1.5 years, I reached out to somebody, referral network strategy. They reached out to somebody they knew that had gone to a new job they were making better, they were happier, and that person mentioned to somebody in the company that they had this conversation, and when you know it, the guy leaves. He goes to that job. He's got a $10K signing bonus. By the end of the year, he'll be making twice or more than doubled what he was making at the bad culture. And the story doesn't end there. He did the same thing. So he spoke to that recruiter and said, hey, do you have a position for XYZ? That XYZ position was for his old manager. And they got the job. So that this whole department who had been, as the article says, they had $100 million worth of sales. to deal with. This whole department leaves. And now there's these new acquisitions who don't have anybody to deal with. And they're gone. So what's really crazy is this all started back. This person just asked for a 20% raise.
Right.
And went through all this trouble at the old company, the toxic company, and ends up like in such a better position. And somebody pointed out, like, you know, it's hilarious because turnover costs more than retaining good employees, and yet companies still don't get that. And you know, it triggered the thoughts we've talked about it time and time again about that. Like, you know, invest in your employees. If you're in the position to invest in your employees, invest in your employees.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things that I talked about doing this video shoot recently was about the future of work, and one of the statements and points that I was making is that the future of work is that the employers can no longer just have values up on a poster board and then not actually live them out, right? And it's surprising to me. I don't know if this is surprising to you. It is surprising to me how many companies and how many executives out there are just absolute jerks.
Yeah. It is surprising.
Like, I just don't understand. Like, I have a huge value of kindness. Like, that's one of my values. I just think you should be kind to everybody. And I just don't, I don't even understand. The sad part about that whole story is not kudos for that whole department and that guy, but the sad part is that, or maybe the ironic part, I don't know. But like, I bet that executive who laughed originally still doesn't care.
No, I'm sure they don't.
And that's a part that just blows my mind away. I just don't. I know exist. I've worked for them. I've worked for those type of people. I recently was in a pretty toxic environment, and my immediate supervisor and person, I'm not even going to say a leader because I don't think they were a leader, they weren't a kind person. And I was thinking about them this weekend because I realized that I needed to have some forgiveness in my heart and continue to let that go. But in my mind, I'm just like, how do those people exist?
Yeah,
it may sound harsh, but I'm just like, how do you continue to just do work and treat people that way and think that it's okay? And I just don't get it. And I think there's a lot of people who don't get it, which is why I really do believe we have this job revolution going on. There's a person I follow on TikTok, and I should have looked at their name. I shared it on my Instagram stories. By the way, Instagram, you can follow us at Career Brand Story.
Nice plug.
Thank you. And so at Career Brand Story Instagram. But I shared a story of someone from TikTok that was talking about this, and some of the reasons they were saying, like, this isn't just going away. Like the Great Resignation, I think, again, kind of going back, I think people thought, oh, this is just a phase. It will go away. Then we saw this new trend of wording quiet quitting. We've noticed unionization happening. Mainly, you've been hearing about that like in Starbucks. We've been seeing that in Amazon and some other companies where there's more unionization happening. And then we have these type of stories where people just walk away. I was on LinkedIn this weekend, and I saw at least 3 stories where people were like, I quit. I don't even have a job lined up, and I did it. And they're and they've got people like, yay, you did it, you quit. Like, it's like the opposite of like, you don't have a job, but you did it. You know, there's this freedom, and it's not going away. And what this TikTok person had pointed out, I think I see you got her pulled up.
Dr. Kim Hires?
Yeah, I love her.
Yeah.
You should follow her on TikTok.
Yeah, if you're listening and you're on TikTok, follow DrKimHires, Dr. Kim Hires.
Yeah, and she did a great explanation of this, like Great Resignation, quiet quitting, unionization, labor rebellion, what I just simply call the job revolution, and the future of work. Her points were being is that the workforce today is so much more diverse and educated, because one of the things she points out is the fact that, we started making the requirement that you had to have a high school degree. Then we made the requirement you got to have a 4-year degree. And then some people out there even made the requirement that you've got to have your master's. So what's happening? Well, you've got a really diverse and really smart workforce out there that can think for themselves,
Yeah.
And so it's not just the back in the day of the factory worker where you just came in and you had one skill and you came in and did that one skill. We have so many skills. Like when I talk to clients, I think people are surprised at the amount of skills that you have and the ability to leverage that and to go and do other things. And so I just don't think people are going to continue to put up with it anymore. And,
I'm laughing because it's kind of like you said, how you just don't get how people can be so rude, so aloof. But then, it's the same thing here. Like, if you're going to make all these really stringent, expensive requirements on people, and then you're surprised Pikachu when they turn out to be really smart because they're extremely educated, probably overeducated.
Right. Yeah. And that goes back to the remote work too. I mean, our friends at Exactio, I think one of their associates wrote a blog about remote work and what would it take you to go back. I hadn't read it yet, but I just read the title and I was like, shoot, there is nothing that could make me go back into the office. Like nothing. Zero, zilch, not happening. And, and I think there's just people have awoken to the fact that, it's like we can do work differently and still make work really meaningful and get a lot done, at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. That's that old question of who's to say that this is the best version of the thing we're doing. Modern and the 9 to 5 is a relatively new concept in the grand scheme of the centuries of working. So this is just the next I guess the next step in the way that work culture and everything evolves.
Yeah. And if you want to learn more about like the future of work, this week, Indeed is doing their Future Works conference. It's October 12th and 13th. It's in New York, but you can attend virtually for free. I'm attending it for free. Indeed, Future Works brings together HR leaders and talent industry experts and HR professionals talking about the shape of future work and hiring together. They've got some pretty cool lineup. Ryan Reynolds is going to be speaking and a bunch of other great people. And so I'm attending that just to kind of learn and understand those trends. So if you're, it's the 12th and 13th of this week.
Oh, man.
So
sorry,
Thursday
kids.
and Friday.
You're going to have missed it.
Wednesday, Thursday.
Maybe. I don't know. If we hopefully we'll get this posted by then.
Oh yeah, I forgot. We're not live.
Yeah, we're not live. Maybe we'll reawaken the Patreon and we'll get some live podcasting going on. But I don't know. I'm going to try to get this one posted like by this Wednesday, so it might still be relevant.
Yeah. Well, maybe you can watch back some things or you just edit this whole thing out. Anyways, but the future of work, there's a whole conversation around it. And, I don't think that this job revolution is going away. It is happening and it is here. And if you are an employer and you're not awoken to the fact that it is happening and that you need to change how you do things and how you engage your talent, you are going to lose talent and it's going to hurt you in the long run. And if you are the job seeker, realize that the future of work looks very different and there are so many opportunities for you now to take advantage of than there was before. I have to know about this one, Jebb.
Okay.
You were reading about, the question came up, why am I doing 2 interviews for Planet Fitness?
Yeah. So
First of all, I would never work at Planet Fitness.
Oh, is that just because you're not into fitness, or what's up? Do you know
Yeah, in
something we
fact,
don't know?
I
Well, working there is not the same as working out there, it turns out.
okay.
Yeah.
That's not
So
true.
You can stand there.
I am really actually trying to work on my health. We have a trail out by our house.
Yeah.
It's if you walk it one way, it's 3 miles. So to walk back, it's total 6 miles. So 2 weeks ago, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to walk it. I didn't really intend to walk the whole thing, but I ended up walking the whole thing. So I walked 6 miles. I was like, all right, I'm feeling pretty good. And so I did that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And by Friday, my left foot was killing me. It was bad. And Christy, my wife, walked with me for 2 miles. So I did like a total of 4 on the Friday. And then by that weekend, my ankle was swollen and I could barely walk on it. So last week, all from walking. And here's the funny thing. I was telling Christy this. So we were out there walking. And I was like, yeah, you'll see these guys running by, like just plowing through. And then a little ways up, you'll see them stopped, like gripping their side, like, And I told her, I was like, I realized walking out here this last week that, you just don't need to be a show off. You don't have to run by the person and act like you're doing better than them. There's no comparison out here. Just take your time, steady pace, even if it's a slow pace, you're doing something, right? And so I was just like talking about like all of that, like this is how, and then I'm the guy from walking who's actually hurt his foot and shouldn't even be out there walking when I was.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What's
So I
interesting
went to an
about that? Oh, go ahead. You went to.
So I went to an orthopedic on Friday, and I still have a little bit of a knot, but he was like, "Yeah, you need to work yourself up to 6 miles." So take it easy and don't do 6 miles every day. Maybe ride a bike one day, change it out, something less impactful, and I'm like, less impactful than walking,
Yeah. Yeah.
But you
Well,
can do that. You can do I did jog a little bit. So I just want to, I don't want to act like was like some avid runner. I'm not at all. This was all about just getting my heart rate up and trying to like, do the right thing. And I felt good, but I should not have just gone trying to walk 6 miles.
yeah. I think you're safe. I don't think anybody's thinking that either of us are avid runners. I think we're okay.
hate running.
We're not mixing this message. We're okay.
So what we're saying is Planet Fitness should not hire us as fitness coaches.
No, we'll tell you just go home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to go grab a donut?
I do. All right. So this woman says, "Why am I doing 2 interviews for a part-time position at Planet Fitness?" This is coming from the Daily Dot, which is, why aren't we doing this? I guess we kind of are. We're the third party now, but like all of these quote unquote news sources are just taking TikTok and Reddit stories and regurgitating them. And now we're regurgitating them. This is a third time through. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. The difference is we're not selling ads.
Right.
So
making money.
So this TikToker was talking about how they're applying for a part-time job at Planet Fitness.
Okay.
They get an interview.
Good job.
The store manager calls back and says, "You did a great job. Yay,
Cool.
But I want you to come in and do a second interview with the assistant manager." So this woman, Alexis is her name, she's wondering, why do I have to come to do a second interview with the assistant manager for a part-time job? And she goes on to just kind of point out, like, this is just some extra money for me, like I'm just trying to buy some candles, to have around the house. So of course, it made me think about, was it our last episode was interview fatigue? And
Yeah.
I joked on that episode when you asked how many job interviews is too much, and I said 2. I was joking. I don't think that's too much. But I do think it's too much when there's no relevance to the second interview. When this was just a matter of not scheduling the first one with the assistant manager. That's my take. What does career coach, professional recruiter have to say about part-time work, multiple interviews?
I mean, it was 2 interviews. Get over it.
Really? Okay. For part-time work at a front desk of a gym, signing up
Yeah,
new
well,
members, squirting off.
So ideally, it would have
Sweat.
been nice, right? So we're talking about here's the thing: we're talking about a manager and an assistant manager. It would have been ideal, I guess, if the manager felt that the assistant manager needed to sign off on it, that they were both there on the same day and they could have just done the interview together, or at least she could have met with both of them. But I don't know how Planet Fitness works. So maybe the manager is doing more day shift and assistant manager does more night shift, and they're on kind of 2 different shifts. And I don't know if this person is going to have to work on 2 different shifts. And so, it would be kind of like, if we were hiring a part-time videographer and I had an interview and conversation with them, I'm going to be like, well, you're going to need to interview and talk with Jebb.
Yeah.
That's 2 interviews.
Yeah,
So,
I'm just
you know what I'm
gonna say
saying?
that, like, hiring a professional videographer to me is a bit different than hiring a front desk Planet Fitness worker. But I hear what you're saying.
I don't know. I mean,
And to your point, I don't know how Planet Fitness works, but I know how Zoom works. And I think that if you can't have 2 people there for the interview, you can Zoom one in. That's me.
Yeah. I'm not disagreeing with you. I think they could do it differently, but I mean, I'm just wondering. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It seems like there was a logistical situation there. I don't know if that's the norm. And
Yeah, I don't
so
know.
if to me it feels like, someone just kind of whining and complaining, that they're so if you don't want to do the second interview, then don't do the job. Then that also actually tells you something too,
Well,
which
that
is what I would
actually-
tell a client.
That person said, no,
Yeah. So
I'm just
if
not going to do it.
yeah, if you don't
Yeah.
like it and you don't like the way that they operate, then don't do it. It's the same thing I would say to someone who, if you want to go work at Amazon, but then all of a sudden, but you don't want to go stand a lot of hours or a lot of running, don't go work at Amazon.
Yeah, not the place for you.
There are some people who will like that, and like that physical part of it, and are
Yeah.
okay with it. So I think that that's just a matter of preference. And when it comes to like the part-time jobs, about it, I think you should still remain professional, but if it's a part-time job, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about. You've got to decide like, well, how much energy is worth you putting into it.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
my dad, who's 74. Yeah, he's 74. He just applied for a part-time job. I don't think it was AutoZone, but it's one of those type of parts jobs.
Yeah.
Just to drive parts to places, because he's just looking for some extra cash and something to do. He likes to drive, I guess. But so he went in for the interview, and he told me, I said, well, how'd it go? He said, yeah, I guess it went fine. I mean, I'm a 74-year-old man, they need a worker. He said, I might have turned him off by what I was asking to be paid, because when I did, I said, he said the amount, and they're like, oh, okay. He said, well, that's what they're paying at the other place. And they're like, oh, okay. And he said, yeah. And I said, well, what's next? And he said, well, so-and-so is supposed to email me. They said he emailed me in a couple hours. That was 4 hours ago. So he's kind of like, but his whole attitude is like, well, if I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't.
I like that attitude.
I think that's my attitude with like a part-time job that you're just looking to make some extra cash. For me, it's just going to be kind of like, yeah, if I want to jump through the hoops to get the job, okay. If I don't, I don't. If I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't. One retail place that I actually got really good customer service the other night from. Can you guess?
Retail place. Is it a restaurant?
Yes.
Is it written on the script?
Yes. Yeah.
I bet that it was Taco Bell.
I did. So Christy and I was like, oh, we were watching a show and they were eating nachos on the show. And we got done watching the show and I was like, looked at her and she looked at me and we were like, we want some nachos, don't you? And I was like, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we made a late night Taco Bell run, which we haven't done in years.
That's fourth
And
meal.
I said, yeah. And I was like, we'll probably regret this. Can I tell you, my friend, I did not regret it.
No.
There wasn't
great.
one part of me regret it. It was delicious. I didn't even have any problems later in my life for making that decision.
Uh-huh.
And I was very happy with my decision. In fact, we were in the drive-thru. Great customer service to the Mount Juliet Taco Bell, especially late at night. But we were ordering, and in fact, I told Christy, I was like, "Yeah, I think that Jebb would get the Mexican pizza." But I'm curious what you would order on a late night Taco Bell run.
That varies. All right, so I love the Mexican pizza.
And they just brought it back, right? It's not. It's
Yeah.
been on maybe back since this last quarter or something like that.
No,
I don't think-
it's only been back for like a couple of weeks now. So they brought it back as like a, publicity thing. And it was so popular they sold out of everything. So they decided to bring it back permanently, which is great. Mexican pizza is definitely one of my favorite things on the Taco Bell menu and always has been, but it's also one of the things that's a little more expensive. So if I'm feeling Taco Bell bougie, I'll get the Mexican pizza because I do love it. But late night runs, I tend to go with the 5-layer burrito.
Okay.
And I also use the app, and you get rewards there constantly. So I'm always getting like a free Nachos Bel Grande, which I think is fantastic. Taco Bell has great thin little tortilla chips that are so good.
So I just want to point this out to our viewers. The Mexican pizza is $4.49.
Mm-hmm.
And that, for you, is the more expensive item that makes you question whether you should get it.
On Taco Bell's menu.
Yes, on Taco Bell's menu.
Yeah. So if
Yeah.
you look at their $1, like their value menu, and you think,
Yeah.
I can get a Mexican pizza, or I can get 4 beefy burritos. You know me,
Yes.
I tend to go with where I can get more. I eat at buffets,
Yes.
man. Come on.
Yes, I know. I just want to point this out to our viewers because this is just our listeners, because of the way you will process and think about what you order.
What I don't think I'm alone here. I've talked to friends of mine who say the same thing. Like, I love the Mexican pizza.
Yeah, I know. There's a whole group of you. It's not the way I order.
But I want 3 of them, and I'm not going to pay $15 for it.
Right. Fascinating. It's very interesting to me. Well, so I ordered. I typically will order the chicken quesadilla.
Mm-hmm. It's good.
Which might surprise you because it's got a little bit of spice to it.
I guess it does surprise me.
Yeah.
You are. I don't want to offend any of our British listeners, but Jeremy has the stereotypical British palate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Salt is too spicy.
I don't actually use a lot of salt, but that is not why. I have heart conditions and blood pressure, so I'm not supposed to use a lot of salt. Now, if you ever go order anywhere with Christy, it takes a while. I don't know if this is the same with your wife, but
No.
it drives me crazy when we pull up to a drive-through because it just can take a while. And because she's got to study the whole menu,
Yeah.
and really check out her options and think it through. So I think she did nachos and cheese. Oh, and she loves Mexican food. So she did a bean burrito, which I would just find absolutely disgusting. But
Well, first of all, Taco Bell, we can't call Mexican food.
well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Second
in the
of all,
category.
I get where you're coming from.
Yeah,
but
that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. She would not sit there and say that it's true Mexican food either. Just
Yeah.
she appreciates and loves authentic Mexican food and is always on the hunt for it. So,
Yes. Same.
Yeah.
Bean burritos are pretty good. I think we've talked a little too much about Taco Bell.
Okay. I was just also
So-
going to say, I think I've said this before, because people are like, what does this have to do with careers? Do you know that if you ran a Taco Bell store, you can make six figures?
I think you could make 7 easily. Taco Bell's where it's at.
So that's all I'm saying. They also, I think I've sent this to you before. They have a job for a food tester too.
Yes. In fact, if you look up Conan O'Brien once went to the Taco Bell HQ
Yes.
out in California. And, it's funny because all kinds of Conan shenanigans. But if you look that up, you'll see food tasters tasting like they're sitting at a little booth. And I think a window opens and a hand comes out and hands them something. They taste it. That is
That's
my
crazy.
dream job. I could thrive in my life and do what I love if I was a food taster for Taco Bell.
Yes. And I've told you there is a hotel down in South Florida
Yes.
that is completely themed off Taco Bell. Like their
Yes.
food, their rooms and everything. And it would be my dream someday to take you to that Taco Bell hotel, Jebb.
Okay, I've got a question for the audience. If you've made it this far and you go and get Taco Bell between now and the next episode, let us know, because we'll use you as a proof that Taco Bell should be paying us for this in-show advertising that we are talking for 10 minutes on.
I think last thing we could talk about, companies eliminating degree requirements, opening doors. So we're seeing a lot more of that kind of happening. There have been like Accenture, a big company, only 26% of their job postings contain a degree requirement. IBM's kind of done away with it, so only 29% did. We've seen that Google, Amazon, Microsoft have also eliminated a lot of their jobs from having the educational requirement. What's your thoughts on that, Jebb?
I am for it where it makes sense. Do I want my doctors to be degreed? Absolutely. Do I care if somebody marketing toothpaste to me has a marketing degree? Not so much. So, where appropriate, I think it's great to drop some of these requirements because a couple of reasons. I think there are plenty of people on this planet, in this country, who can do a lot of these jobs and can bring interesting perspectives and be like really valuable parts of a company's team who have never set foot into a college. I also think that as we're seeing, especially these days, college is so stinking expensive that if you're not going to pay people enough to cover the cost of their education, I don't understand requiring that education. Social work comes to mind. I think social workers should have degrees, but I think that they should be paid so much more.
Absolutely.
So
same with teachers.
It's one of those things. Yeah, we should be spending the money where it needs to be spent and covering the cost of the education for the people who are, serving us so importantly in these roles. But yeah, if you're just talking about, well, I've already made my point. I'm for it where it's appropriate.
Yeah, I think the gig economy is the thing that's gonna really shift this even more, because people are learning that they can go out and make money themselves, and don't have to have they don't have to have a degree behind that. They don't even have to have significant experience necessarily to get into the gig economy. Now, I think what's going to separate people in the gig economy is like how much you invest yourself into that and become skilled and niched at what you do. But you can get into it without any boundaries, any obstacles holding you back from actually getting into it, right? And that opens a lot of doors for a lot of people in the way that we're connected with the internet and around the world now. I still think college can have value, like you. I think it should be really purposeful while you're doing it. As my son headed off to college, that wasn't his original plan. We talked a lot about, his next steps, and it just became the path that seemed like that made the most sense for right now. But I will tell you that if his plan changes or his direction changes, it may not, and he may not actually even finish for the degree, which that might blow some people's minds. Like, wait, what? But I mean, our purpose is there. There is some purpose for, yes, the 4-year degree for him. There is also some other purposes there for him right now that makes sense. But so I think that you have to really decide what's worth it to you. And I'm always telling clients this. I talked to a prospective client who was like thinking about going and getting their MBA, and I was like, I wouldn't do that. The MBA is oversaturated in the market. It's a dime a dozen. Anyone can go get it. And I don't think that it really boosts anything for your salary or your job. But if you tell me you're going to go get a specialized certification in project management, or you're going to get a specialized certification in data science and do a boot camp and spend $10,000, $12,000 to go and do that, I can actually show you proof in case with other clients where they've seen significant financial gain and job opportunities because of that. So I think you have to be really purposeful at what you go after and why you go after it, and don't just waste your dollars just because you think that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. I am not anti-college. I come off that way a lot of times. I'm very grateful for the time I spent in college. Did I need it for what I do? No. And did I, is it even relevant? Had I finished, is it even relevant to what I do? Not really. Because I just think about how quickly our tech and our changes, like things we were talking about earlier, like whether you're in the office or not, how quickly all this stuff is changing things. And when that comes to education, there are some fields that, for mine specifically, I learned film in college. And I'm talking about literal film, not like film school directing and all that. I did learn that too. But I learned about processing film, photographing on film, all this stuff. I spent all these hours in the lab working on all that for 2 to 5 years out of college, film is now a boutique industry. It's for people who want to do that. Everything's digital now. And, nothing that I learned about film serves me. And I know that's a really kind of a small segment, but I think that across the board, there are areas where, we don't even have a full enough picture to even be teaching some of the things to make some of the degrees relevant. I'm thinking about stuff like marketing, like if you're teaching social media marketing, that's tough from a 4-year perspective, from a traditional perspective, because it changes so quickly. You'd be better spending your time with a social media marketing consultant where you do one-on-one courses, or where you're doing you're talking about, you're doing certifications. I think that just makes so much more sense.
Yeah, and I think that the rise of what we call like more vocational jobs, need to continue to happen too. There's going to be a huge need in the U.S. in our infrastructure of people who can just do more craft jobs, like welding, like my brain's going dead now at the moment as I'm trying to think of different types of jobs.
Mechanical.
Yeah, mechanical jobs. It is lunchtime now for me.
I know.
Mechanical jobs, automobile jobs, just those type of things that are sitting out there. Carpenters. I mean, there's so many different opportunities out there. And I think what's unfortunate too is that, what we've stripped away out of schools, even at the middle school and high school level, when we've taken out like home economics and wood crafting and metal crafting, and when you take those things away, I think we need to add more of those back into our public school system.
Yeah, I agree. The thing that when I started my little spiel a minute ago, the thing that I really loved about college that did serve me well aren't so much the technical skills that I use in my job, but the things we call soft skills, which I think we both agree are much more important than the term soft skills give them. And the liberal arts education, the idea of the well-rounded person, I think is a good one, a valuable one. And going back to high school, I wish that I had more of that kind of experience back in high school as well.
Yeah. Well, listen, everyone, thanks for joining us for our roundtable of hot topics here this morning. Hopefully we have helped you and enticed you to think differently about your career today. And if nothing else, we've given you great suggestions on what to go eat today for lunch at Taco Bell. And I don't know, that alone was worth the listen, I think, in my opinion. So if you are looking for help in regards to your career brand story, check us out at careerbrandstory.com. We just refreshed the entire page. It's looking sharp and nice and talks all about the ways that we can help you. You can find us on LinkedIn and TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook at Career Brand Story. And while many of you do listen to this podcast,
gotta listen to the Podpass.
The Podpass, because Podpasses are about pods that you listen to in the past. Oh,
it's going to be okay, Jeremy.
Yeah, it's a good thing I don't run for president. They would have a heyday with me.
Oh my gosh.
They'd be like, he's incompetent, but not for the reasons you think.
poor Jeremy.
Oh, man. Listen, if you listen to the podcast, we love that you do that. But you can also watch each episode on the YouTube. And really, we'd love for you to go to YouTube and subscribe to us. It's, I think, a lot of fun to watch and see our ugly faces there, too. And who knows?
Radio, baby.
That's right. Maybe next time we'll have Taco Bell on the show while we do it.
Oh, that would make for great audio.
So we got some great guests coming up in the future as well. So we're looking forward to that in the next several weeks. So stay tuned. We got some cool things coming up next. Jebb, where can everybody find you?
My handle is at JebbGraff, JebbGraff, on all of the social media networks, and you can always find me on my website at jebbgraff.com.
First beat is silent for him, by the way.
Gosh,
all right,
keep
y'all.
forgetting that.
Keep thriving.